So we again draw the norma lateralis, this time much faster. This is the zygomatic bone. And we draw the spine. And the thorax. And we place the first rib attach it to the sternum. Make the clavicle. Articulate it with the scapula. Place the glenoid here. And so this becomes the pectoral girdle. And on this, we place the muscle. We have already told you that here would be the styloid process, and we have made the. So let us first of all complete the oral cavity. So if you open your mouth, this is what you see as the oral cavity. Here is the upper lip, and here is the lower lip. You see some teeth here and some teeth here. Same way you see some teeth here and some teeth here. And then you see an opening like this, which has a muscle hanging in between, which is the musculus uvula. Then you see the tongue, which is placed here. On the side, you find that there are two pillars actually here, and in between them is the tonsil. So this is the tonsillar fossa, and the anterior pillar of the tonsillar fossa is formed by a muscle which comes from the palate and goes into the tongue, which is the palatoglossus, and the posterior pillar is formed by a muscle which comes from the palate and goes into the pharynx. So palatopharyngeus and palatoglossus, and the base of course is the superior constrictor. The superior constrictor lying like this, and these two pillars are lying like this. So this is the basic structure, and beyond the teeth, between the teeth and the cheek, you find what is the vestibule. All right, vestibule of the mouth. So if we say here would be somewhere the lateral pterygoid plate, here the medial pterygoid plate, the pterygomandibular raphe, and you would find that the buccinator would arise like this and go into the muscles of the mouth, orbicularis oris, and this orbicularis oris would have the levator, depressor anguli oris and levator anguli oris, and levator labii superioris and labii inferioris, so that you can make all shapes of mouth and can close the lip. So these muscles of the mouth, buccinator would fuse into this. Between the buccinator and the jaw, the mandible would lie the vestibule of the mouth. Then we we had placed a pharyngeal raphe here, and this pharyngeal raphe was connected to the superior constrictor. The hyoid bone was here, and from the hyoid arose the inferior constrictor, and from the thyroid cartilage here arose the inferior constrictor, and from the cricoid arose the cricopharyngeus, and then here you had the mylohyoid muscle which forms the floor of the mouth, and these were the membranes, the thyroid membrane and the cricothyroid membrane, and behind you had the esophagus, and here you had the trachea. Now, here is the isthmus of the thyroid gland, and here is the lobe of the thyroid gland, and the thyroid gland is a gland with a left and a right lobe and an isthmus in between. And then you see that here is the cricoid bone, and here are the cartilages of the trachea. So this isthmus of the thyroid covers the second and the third tracheal cartilage. So we have placed the thyroid gland here. Okay, so now we would place another muscle which arises from the mastoid, winds round the cornua of the hyoid cartilage, and forms, if this is the mandible, here is the hyoid bone, somewhere here is the middle raphe, here you see the mylohyoid muscle from the floor. Then this muscle comes like this, winds round the cornua and goes like this to get attached to the mandible. This muscle is called as the digastric muscle. So this is called as the submental triangle. And this is called as the submandibular triangle. And this whole thing is called as the digastric triangle. Then here you would see the the thyroid cartilage like this, and then articulating with this you will see the cricoid cartilage, and of course this would be the thyroid membrane, and this would be the cricothyroid membrane, and here you will see the cartilages of the trachea, and these cartilages of the trachea have been connected by the trachea. So here is the trachea. Alright, then from the hyoid would arise a muscle which is called as omohyoid, and it will go behind like this to get attached to the scapula. So from here, from the hyoid cartilage would arise this muscle, and would arch and go and get attached to the scapula. This muscle is called as omohyoid. So this is the lateralmost muscle, omohyoid, and with the digastric and a muscle which covers here, which is the sternomastoid, this forms what is called as the another triangle bounded by sternomastoid and two bellies of the omohyoid. This forms another triangle which is called as the cervical triangle. So here you have the thyroid gland like this. So this is the muscular structure of the viscera of the neck. Then in the oral cavity you have this tongue, and this tongue has got longitudinal fibers and vertical fibers and transverse fibers so that it can take it into any shape. And from the styloid you have three muscles. One is styloglossus, second is stylohyoid, and the third is stylopharyngeus, which passes between the superior and middle constrictor and gets inserted onto the cornua of the thyroid bone. So from the styloid you have one going to the tongue, glossus, the other going to the hyoid, and the third going to the pharyngeus, and this pharyngeus passes between the superior, the middle and the inferior constrictor to get inserted into the cornua of the thyroid. Now the styloglossus would pull the tongue backwards, and genioglossus arising from the mandible, that genioglossus, so the tongue would be pulled backwards by styloglossus, forwards by genioglossus, upwards by palatoglossus, and downwards by hyoglossus. So these would pull the tongue in any direction. All right. Styloglossus backwards, genioglossus forwards, palatoglossus upwards, and hyoglossus downwards. So this is a highly motile muscular structure here. And sometimes behind the tongue you can see a cartilaginous structure here, which is the epiglottis. Now this epiglottis would sort of shut over the larynx when the tongue tries to deglutate. Okay. Now we will place this palate, and we would remind you of the basis cranii externa, in which this was the alveolus. Here you had a ridge which was called as the palatine ridge. Here you had a cruciate fissure. This was the lower surface of the maxilla, and this was the horizontal plate of the palatine bone. Now, here you had the medial pterygoid plate, and here you had the lateral pterygoid plate, like this. And here you had the cavity of the nose, posterior nasal sinuses. Here you had the spine, and from this you had the pterygomandibular ligament, and you had a muscle which arose from the medial pterygoid plate, turned round the humulus, and formed an aponeurosis like this. And this was the tensor villi palatii. So this is the soft palate, and this is the hard palate. From here you have another muscle which arose from the posterior nasal spine, which was here. This was the antenasal spine, and got inserted into the nasal spine, and this was the musculus uvula. From the palatine aponeurosis, you have a palatopharyngeus going into the pharynx, and palatoglossus going into the tongue, which forms the tonsillar fossa. From the pterygomandibular raphe, you had the superior constrictor going on to the pharyngeal raphe. So pterygomandibular, this was the superior constrictor. So the palatoglossus and palatopharyngeus form the two pillars of the tonsil, and it is flowed by the superior constrictor. Now the palatoglossus and palatopharyngeus would pull the palate down, and so this would become the palate, and the levator palati would pull it up. And when the palate is pulled up, there is a ring of the superior constrictor which comes, making it like this, and the palate goes and strikes against this ring, and this is called as the passavant's ridge. So this would close the nasopharynx, and the food would not be able to regurgitate through the nose. So this is an extremely important anatomy, because you do have cleft lip and cleft palate, and the problem with them is regurgitation of the food through the nose when you are deglutating. So this finishes the anatomy of the mouth, except now that the important thing left out is the movement of the mandible. So we make another diagram showing you the mandible and the muscle. Here is the lateral pterygoid plate, and here you have the pterygopalatine fossa, and here you see the pterygoid hamulus of the medial pterygoid plate. So now, from under this zygomatic arch, Here is the zygomatic arch and its frontal prominence. This articulates with the maxilla, this with the frontal bone, and this with the temporal bone. So from under the zygomatic arch, you have a muscle which arises and inserts into the temporal bone. This muscle is called as temporalis. It will close the jaw. The other two muscles that close the jaw are masseter, which arise from the zygomatic arch and get inserted into the mandible like this, and the medial pterygoid, which arises from the lateral pterygoid plate and get inserted into the inner surface of the mandible. So the temporalis is the main force which closes the jaw tight, and if you visualize the jaw like this, then the medial pterygoid of this side and the masseter of this side would pull the jaw in this direction. Same way, the masseter of that side and the medial pterygoid of this side would pull the jaw in this direction. So there will be a horizontal movement like this, which allows for the crushing of the matter between the upper and the lower jaw. So this is the masseter and this is the medial pterygoid, and the force would of course be provided by the temporalis. But the commonest question is, what opens the jaw? The lateral pterygoid arising from the lateral pterygoid plate and the inferior surface of the sphenoid, two-headed muscle getting inserted onto the head of the neck of the mandible here, pulls the jaw open. So the lateral pterygoid, we'll make a bigger diagram here. The lateral pterygoid plate and the inferior surface, this is the pterygopalatine fossa, here is the pterygoid amylus, and here is the jaw, which is open. So the lateral pterygoid arises from here and from here and gets inserted into the neck of the mandible, and this opens the jaw. So this is the lateral pterygoid. The artery, the maxillary, the superficial temporal artery is lying here. The maxillary artery lies like this. It passes under the lateral pterygoid, crosses here and enters the pterygopalatine fossa. So there's a maxillary artery with which this muscle is related. So this is the lateral pterygoid. So we covered the movements of the lower jaw. The lateral pterygoid opens it. The temporalis is the main closing muscle, and the medial pterygoid and the masseter of the opposite side combine in causing the jaw to move, causing the crushing action. So this is the physiology of mastication. So oral intake, mastication, and deglutition. In the deglutition, the tongue goes against the palate by the action of the muscle palatoglossus. The volume of the oral cavity shrinks, so the food is pushed posteriorly. It sits on the epiglottis, closes it, so that like a trap door, the larynx is closed and the food is pushed into the laryngopharynx. And on the other hand, the the levator palati rises up, so that the palate rises up, and there's a ring which forms on the inner surface of the superior constrictor, which is called as the passavant ridge, and this palate would just strike against the passavant ridge, and the food will not be able to go into the nose or the nasopharynx. So this is the anatomy of oral intake. Mastication and deglutition, and then we will go ahead of this in the next video.